Welcome to Ohio Roots, the official podcast of the Ohio Genealogical Society. Join us as we embark on a captivating journey through Ohio's rich genealogy, history, and abundant resources. Hosted by me, OGS Executive Director Noel Poirier, this podcast brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests, from OGS members, chapter leaders, and staff to renowned genealogists, historians, and influential figures within the genealogical community. Each episode delves into fascinating topics and captivating stories. So grab your headphones, hit that play button, and join us on this enthralling journey of Ohio's roots. My guest on this episode of the Ohio Roots podcast is Curt Witcher. Curt is the manager of the Genealogy Center at the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's also the director of special collections there. Many of you know about the Allen County Public Library from your own research, and I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to Curt about the library, how it operates, and his own viewpoints on the field of genealogy. So enjoy this conversation with Curt Witcher. Well, Curt Witcher, thanks so much for joining me today on the Ohio Roots podcast. I really appreciate you being here. I'm going to start out, if you don't mind, with a question I ask everybody, which is, how did you get involved in genealogy and history and libraries, and what was your motivating factor?
Wow, we could talk an hour about that, but I'll give you the shortened version. As far as interest in history and family history, I kind of came to a love of that through like a number of different channels. So first, I'm a history nerd. As a little kid, I loved reading biographies. I was ravenous, consumed biographies, even the ones that were just like a template and they basically said the same thing, just plugged in different names. Sure. I loved local history too. Like, why did people decide to settle here, wherever here is, whether it's my hometown of Jasper, Indiana, or whether it's, a big city like Chicago, really didn't matter. It could be like Columbus or Cleveland or, Antwerp, Ohio. Like, why did people go there? So that was always a fascination to me. When it came to my interest in family history, I must admit that part of that being a history geek played into it, but also my parents never spoke more than a thimbleful of information about their families. So as a kid, it was like, maybe I should look into this further. Like, what are they hiding? What don't they want us to know? And there were some reasons, kind of some silly pedestrian reasons, particularly on my mom's family. Don't tell her I told you this, but, she grew up very, very poor. Okay. And she was embarrassed about that and didn't want her kids to know. She and my father, worked real hard. We were in a middle-class neighborhood. We didn't want for anything, but she never wanted to talk about how much of a challenge her childhood was. So them not sharing with me kind of chummed my interest. And then something I didn't know at the time, but later in my career, I put kind of a finer prism on it. The power of story. I knew that people who knew more about where their family came from, about their extended family, about trades and school and occupation and degrees. Those people seem to be interesting. They seem to be have more good times more often. They seem to be more well-rounded. So I thought there's something here about knowing your family history. And contemporarily, it's really in evidence, both in education, and sociologists and psychologists are, churning out the literature on how important story is, how important it is to know our stories.
It's interesting to bring up a point because I know we both obviously work with a lot of folks who are genealogists. But like you, I have a history background. My academic education is in history. And so for me, storytelling was always a bigger part of it. And I've always felt of myself as more of a family historian than a genealogist. And I know when you're interacting with genealogists and family historians, there are kind of a different approach, don't you think, between those two people?
Yes and no. So that is such a great question because I've mentally or academically struggled with that. Over my career, which is a fairly extensive career. Yes, there are two different, I guess you could call them fields of study.
Sure.
but there's so much overlap.
Right.
And I'll just have to relay my experience over my 45-year plus career. Academicians have tended to look down on genealogists as not real researchers, not doing real research.
Sure.
And the really good academicians, I'm going to be a little parochial on you. One of the amazing history professors emeritus from IU, Indiana University, James Madison. Oh my gosh, he was a great history teacher, and he saw that, genealogists are doing history, sometimes not as rigorous in resource evaluation as they should be. But then we have academicians plagiarizing the heck out of each other all the time, and using questionable sources, and just keeping that cycle going. So I guess the best answer is, from my perspective, it's a big field.
Yeah.
There's still so much to discover, so many connections to be made. With generative AI, we're going to be finding so many more documents and understanding those documents so much better than any of our previous generations. I think it's going to be really exciting times in the history field, whether you're just focusing on local history and migration patterns, or whether you're actually trying to integrate that into family history. I don't think one can be a successful genealogist without knowing a lot of history about establishing that context.
Oh, totally agree. That's always been my love, is putting my relatives or my ancestors in the context of the time that they lived and the communities they lived in and the people they lived in and their neighbors and those types of things. I always find that to be the most enjoyable aspect of doing it for me anyway. Let's talk about the Allen County Public Library. For folks who aren't familiar with it, give them a little background on it.
Sure. So literally since 1895, this might sound a little odd, but this community has been in more than a century and a quarter's love affair with its library. So from 1895 to present, this community has supported its library at a higher per capita rate, tax-wise, than nearly any other place in the country. And just as an example, like your big cities, the Bronx, New York Public, Miami, Dallas, Columbus Metro, Cincinnati, Cleveland, the average is about 42 cents per $100 of assessed valuation for property taxes. Fort Wayne, Allen County residents pay about 83 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, and they do it willingly. They embrace that. So an really eccentric director in the 1940s and 50s really began to see that genealogists were a discriminated class of library patrons. They're typically, as you know, they're power users. They ask a lot of questions. They use a lot of resources. And you would think that public librarians would embrace that, but many decades ago, they really didn't. It was like, oh my gosh, these patrons are a bother. They're in our face all day long. They're wanting us to help them do this family history stuff. So he had the idea that he would, in the Allen County Public Library, start a genealogy department, a genealogy center. And all he wanted was a place where patrons could come, where people could come and get good service. So he had no idea that it would take off like a match on dry wood. And we grew from a couple hundred volumes to north of 1.2 million physical items today. And we're adding about 600 to 700 items a month to our collection. So it really became a place where people knew they could get good service. People would dialogue with them, communicate with them, muse with them about how to solve a brick wall or where to go next in their research. And then the material just kept coming in like crazy.
Do you think the prevalence of family history and genealogy departments within public libraries now can be kind of traced back to the Allen County Public Library's efforts?
I guess I don't have enough metrics to make that connection. What I do have is a lot of circumstantial evidence where we have linear feet of correspondence and then many gigabytes of email over decades, where libraries are contacting us from Kansas to California to Washington State to Texas. And we've over the years had great relationships with them, swapping materials as far as, well, we got another donation. This is our third copy of this here. Why don't you take that?
Right.
I think there is some relationship there.
Yeah.
Were we the inspiration behind all of that? I think that's a little too lofty. I think what we experienced here in Fort Wayne, people knew about it and they said, I wonder if I could replicate that here.
Right.
And I really think the major driver was their citizens.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to have their public library support their efforts.
Yeah.
So I think it was people's interest in that. I know it's like forever ago, but the nation's bicentennial in 1976 and Alex Haley's Roots that same year, that was really a watershed moment for people when they basically began to understand, I don't have to be just white and just rich to do my family history. Everyone has a story, and there's a way that everyone can find their story. And I think that's when the people, the populace, said, I wonder if my public library can help me with that. And if they can't, why aren't they helping me with that?
It's interesting. One of our jobs at OGS, of the Ohio Genealogical Society, is to try to connect people with the resources they need. Yeah. So naturally, when people reach out to us about a county or even a library, because, as a matter of fact, I just answered an email today from a librarian who just took over a genealogy department in Medina County, and he wanted to know, who can I talk to about getting programs and things. What role do you see for organizations like the Ohio Genealogical Society and others in assisting libraries in serving their patrons?
I have my entire career, and certainly as much now as ever, believe that state historical societies, most especially those state genealogical societies and county genealogical societies, play a huge role because they can really focus on family history, collecting things that are not like major publishers, and having the expertise where you can really hone in. We're fortunate, and you have some amazing public libraries in Ohio. The Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus. Oh my gosh, you have 3 mega research repositories. But it's the small libraries as well that collect the local history material, that put people in a place at a time doing something. So it's really critical that genealogists have, like OGS, a society that really focuses just on family history and the contextual local history. Public libraries, your big public libraries, can handle the wide cross-section of patrons. A lot of your medium and small public libraries can't, which really elevates the value of OGS. Where are you going to go? Small libraries all over the country, they really are part of the lifeblood of their communities, but they're doing summer learning programs, and they're doing ESL programs, and they're dealing with unhomed, and they're dealing with a lot of the population that needs to learn English as a second language, a lot of the population that needs to update their scores, help businessmen with business plans, etc. OGS has the wonderful benefit of a really neat and pretty amazing collection, both size-wise and depth-wise. And you have expertise. You can help the librarian at the Medina County Public Library or the Lima Public Library.
One of the things that we've taken on as our initiative that we've done in the last couple of years is the Malvernine Harshman Librarians Day program that we offer at OGS, which has been an opportunity for librarians from all across the state to come in and sometimes learn about how to do genealogy, how to help their patrons with genealogy, but also to share their experiences with us and their successes with other people in the library field, so that we can kind of get that out there more. One of the things that we tell people all the time about, and because our publications, and we have a lot of periodicals in our library, is we explain to people they need to understand what Percy is. So I'm going to give you a chance to sing the praises of Percy.
Well, we've had fun with it since about 1985. We've been subject indexing periodicals, genealogical, historical, ethnic, and local history periodicals from literally across the world. There's about 3.13 million subject entries in Percy. we had all kinds of different plans for Percy over the years, but the North Star for us is how can we help genealogists find out that this particular periodical has something about the church of their ancestors' family tree, obituary, cemetery inscriptions, all the same things that genealogists would expect to find in books. Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah. There's so much in periodical literature. And again, to sing the praises of OGS, your periodicals over the lifetime of your society are top shelf, and your chapter publications. Sure, yeah. Oh my goodness. Just rich with information. So we decided, and we looked around, we thought, surely someone else is doing this. and no one else is doing that. We tried to work with some large information aggregators. They have a different North Star. It's all about, making money. And I get that. I totally get that. So you compromise a lot of quality sometimes. So about 3 years ago, we said, we're going to bring this totally in-house. We were doing day indexing the whole time. We're just going to offer it for free. We're going to put it on our website, click on it and search away. One of the most popular asked programs is, talk to me about how I can best use Percy. And we do a lot of those programs. Yeah. But it's so rich, Noel. There's just so much there that if you don't use periodical literature, if you don't use, for example, all the wonderful serials and quarterlies and newsletters that are published by Ohio chapters and OGS, you're easily missing potentially a third of the context, the documents, the transcriptions, the abstractions that will help you with your family history. I don't know many people that can say, I'm just going to chuck a third of the resources that can help me with my research. Yeah.
And it's all what's interesting to me about Percy and periodicals in general is there are a lot of authors and researchers out there who are never going to write a book length piece.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't minimize the quality of their research or the quality of the information they keep in those shorter, journal length articles.
Yeah.
And I think
you're spot on.
Like you said, to ignore that is just insane to me, which is why I definitely wanted to talk about Percy. As I mentioned, I was kind of playing around on the website today, and one of the things that really struck me were the two gateways you have up on the website now for Indigenous peoples and for African Americans. Unlock the mysteries of your ancestry with the Ohio Genealogical Society at www.ogs.org. Dive deep into your family's past and connect with fellow enthusiasts. Join us now for exclusive access to expert insights, resources, and a vibrant community. Visit www.ogs.org and start your genealogical journey today. If you enjoy listening to the Ohio Roots podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could go to whatever platform it is that you listen and give us a good review. Reviews help us get more listeners and reach more people with Ohio Roots and what we're trying to do with the Ohio Genealogical Society. So please leave us a nice review, and thanks for listening. Talk to me about how that came about and what you're hoping those will accomplish for folks.
Great question, and thank you for that. Indigenous peoples research and African American research are among the most challenging research that one can encounter. For Indigenous peoples, certainly not all of them, but a significant majority, a very significant majority, don't have a written record. So you're learning about them through what we call intruder records, those who intruded upon their society. Sure. So missionaries and trappers and government agents and pioneers, and trying to bring that information together, trying to set a context for that can be very, very challenging. And knowing a lot of the history of the area so you can identify who the intruders are, and then trying to access the intruders' records and documents and letters and diaries so you can begin to paint a context of a clan or a village or an area is really difficult. But we so passionately believe that everyone has a story, so we want to help people find their story. So big point number one for both of those gateways is trying to let people know that there are resources, and we do a different, what I call access schema with those gateways than just using a regular library catalog. If I have a couple seconds in a moment,
take your time.
I'd like to roll back to that. African American research is challenging because African Americans need to look in both property and person records for those who were enslaved over time. And a lot of those records, again, are the enslaver, not necessarily the enslaved. With African American research, we're just so excited and anxious and interested in trying to lower that barrier, lower that wall. There are a lot of assumptions, and we know how bad assumptions can be. Like I can't trace my family back, before the Civil War. Maybe, but maybe you can.
Right.
And trying to access more resources. There's just an amazing amount published on African American research as well as Indigenous peoples. So those are two foci of our collection development plan. Right. And so we buy just about everything we possibly can get our hands on for both those areas of research. The second reason those two gateways are really important to me, and I'm taking a little bit of a left turn here, but that is I've been on the soapbox for my entire career. Library catalogs generally stink. They're not like Google. They're not like Amazon. Right. There's even a whole cluster of librarians who kind of look down at people like me and look down at patrons who say, of course they're not Google. That's terrible. Yeah. Of course they're not like Amazon. Yeah, we wouldn't want a catalog to be like Amazon that would, like, when we search for something, it would bring us things like, oh, would you like to look at this? Would you like to look at that? That would be terrible, wouldn't it? In the genealogy space. Oh, I see you're interested in the Murphy family of Henderson County, Tennessee. Here are some other, families in Henderson County that interacted with your Murphys.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be terrible. Just absolutely terrible. So library catalogs, we switched about 6 years ago to a library catalog that was supposed to do everything, including give us a latte and tie our shoes. It was horrible. And we left it in less than 6 years, which is really a short amount of time to have a library catalog. And we flipped to a new catalog. It's much better than our previous catalog. But oh my gosh, as a discovery tool in the 21st century, it still really stinks.
Yeah.
You can use an entire shelf of books, and you've made notes about resources, etc. Next time you come to the library, you can't find a couple of those books in the online catalog to save your life. Why is that? That shouldn't be. Basically, library catalogs are old technology, which is a new skin on them. So I'll get off that soapbox now. When you have a really challenging area of research, we wanted to create another tool that could come up aside of the library catalog, the ILS, and provide another option of discovery for people who are trying to do these challenging areas of research.
Okay. One of your words is stuck in my brain, and I'd like to come back to it if you don't mind. So I'd like to pick your brain about it. You use the term, when we're talking about Indigenous peoples, use the term intruder history. Wouldn't you agree, though, that there are folks within genealogical communities, including our own, who view intruders as first families?
Yeah.
I mean, and to me that raises kind of the challenge maybe sometimes. Yeah. I'm speaking for myself now, that we as a genealogical organization have in reaching out to other communities, simply because for so long we've only talked about the intruders. Is that, and I think that you opening a gateway for that sounds fascinating to me.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I know you have discovered this, I'm sure, in both your academic and business career, there are very few straight lines and totally clear paths. So, yes, there are all kinds of ways of interpreting and providing context or levels to that term, intruder. And I think they all bear some kind of intellectual pondering. What does that mean?
One of our goals, as OGS is to be more inclusive, is to find a way to be more inclusive, and trying not to trip over our own shoes in the process of doing it. And so that raises challenges, certainly. The gateways are fascinating to me, just because, again, you're opening those doors up for people. What other resources can users find at the Allen County Public Library's site, and physically and electronically?
Sure. Absolutely. So a couple things that I would just highlight. One, it's really pedestrian, but sometimes, I really believe in life lived in the small places. And so sometimes even these little pedestrian tools can be a spark. And that's really all that they're intended to be. But we have what we call state and country and subject snapshots. Okay. They're just PDF files, one for every state, major countries, major ethnic groups. And it can be anywhere from 2 pages, a 2-page PDF, completely downloadable, or a 12-page PDF. It's kind of like Cindy's list on paper, if you will, sure. Where you have like maybe 8 or 9 different categories. And all we're saying is for Tennessee, for Ohio, these are major statewide indices. The vital records and church records and land and property records and research guides. In our 21st century world, there seems to be a diminishing emphasis on pausing and just reading a well-done online or in print research guide. Like if you're doing research in Ohio, here's like 25 things you ought to be aware of. If you're doing research in colonial America, if you're doing research in the 19th century, here's 27 things you might want to consider. I think to our own injury, we don't spend enough time just taking a pause and looking around. Like, what are the best practices for researching in Ohio during the immediate post-Revolutionary War time period? What can I find? What are the records? What's the strategy for identifying records and piecing that together? So that's one thing we have on our website is we like those little Cindy's list on paper, and our aspiration is that those will trigger like, I may be even looking at an Oklahoma one, but I never thought of looking at that kind of a book. Each one all represents less than 0.5% of our collection for any given state, but it's just meant to be a trigger. The second thing is we are partnering and have partnered for more than a decade with Internet Archive and Family Search. It sounds almost antithetical to getting people to come here and embrace our collection, but just the opposite happens. We're trying to digitize and make available freely online everything that's not copyrighted, everything that's clear of intellectual property rights. So we have about 30 to 35,000 free digital assets in the Family Search digital library, and we're approaching 130,000 free items, local histories, church histories, family histories, ethnic histories on the Internet Archive. So we have a Family Search scanning station in our library and an Internet Archive scanning area. So we're all about trying to forward face as much information as we can. We also get a good number of really small, couple hundred names, couple thousand names, too small for all the information aggregators like Ancestry and even Family Search. But they give us, like, here's 2 cemeteries worth of abstractions. Some of them are more faithful than others to what's actually on the tombstone. But we'll just publish that online. Someone will say, what you just articulated a little bit earlier, I'm never going to publish this, but, I do have 325 pages of my Witcher family history. Sure. Would you like it? Yeah. Sure. And then we just, with their permission, we post it online for free. And then everyone can benefit from that.
If you were working at the library one day and a young person or any age, let's say, comes in, wants to start their family history journey, what's the first and best bit of advice you're going to give them? This may explode some heads, so I'll give you that preface. So one, we just like to be excited with them about them starting a journey. We're pretty good at reading people if they're in any way hesitant, or maybe it took all their emotional energy to come up to the desk and ask a question. We just really want to, thank them, compliment them, whatever kind of positive stroke they need to say, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Everyone has a story. Kudos to you for starting to find your story. Then quickly, we like to tell people of all ages from, 9 to 99, you know more than you think you know.
I do. Yeah. So you just talk to them about how you gather information from what we call family sources, whether they're an old Bible that's been passed down for 2 generations, that's family info in it, whether it's a photo album or some photographs are identified. We just talk to them about how do you begin to just piece together information that you have. We show them a couple free places where they can just start putting a tree together. And then we really believe in what we call shoulder to shoulder or consultative reference model. Mm-hmm. So we don't just tell them what to do. We ask them, like, do you know your grandfather's name on your dad's side? Oh, you do. What's his name? Okay. I would say easily 60 to 70% of the time in like a half an hour. And we easily spend that time willingly with any customer. We can go on, and this is where the head exploding comes in. we can go on Ancestry and we can just start searching. And then, on the right-hand side where all these possible records come up, we just start asking, and gosh, it's amazing. Like 9.5 times out of 10 in the first list there on the initial search, they recognize a name or they recognize a place, and they'll lean forward to the monitor because we do a shared monitor thing. It's like, that's the town. I know that's the town. So what I call memory triggers. So if you talk to them, you encourage them, you let them know it's really a cool thing. You get on Ancestry because why not leverage 60 billion online names and show them how easy it can be to get started. And I know some individuals, and I won't broad brush this, but I hear it consistently, not loudly, but consistently, like, oh, well, not everything's on Ancestry. Well, not all of that's correct on it. Yeah, got it. So when you're trying to encourage someone, are you going to do it with vinegar? Or are you going to do it with honey? Well, we're going to do it with honey. The thing that I have told to many individuals, a lot of them professionals who are upset that Ancestry is our first go-to place, is I don't know anyone. I haven't met a single person in my career, and again, I've been in the space a few days, who wants to find someone else's story, who wants to trace someone else's family. So so they might not be as rigorous as we want them to be at first. But it's amazing. It's just amazing to me how quickly they come to, now, wait a minute. That can't possibly be my 3 times great because, that doesn't match and this doesn't match. Right. They quickly, if you don't beat them over the head with it, they quickly come to be really good evaluators. Like, I want to know my story. I want to know my family history. I don't want to know yours. So I can piece all kinds of things together, but there's much more of a drive. And I think it all has to do with that positive context, that positive aura. It's much more of a drive to find my family. And we have people, teenagers, people that are 20, 30 years young, and people that are 60, 70 years young, after spending 20, 30 minutes with us, walk out of here with a couple printouts or a couple things scribbled on there. And a little wider than your smile right now, the smile on their face, like, yes, I can do this. This is cool.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Curt Witcher from the Allen County Public Library, thank you so much for joining me here on the Ohio Roots podcast. I think I'm going to have you back again to discuss some other things, but I appreciate you taking some time with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Well, it was a really interesting conversation with Curt Witcher. I learned an awful lot about the Allen County Public Library's resources and their mindset. I really enjoyed talking to Curt about his own approach to genealogy and his approach to helping people with genealogy. It's amazing and wonderful that the library gets so much local support. I'm kind of envious of that. But again, thank you to Curt Witcher for taking the time to talk to us on the Ohio Roots podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening, and I hope you'll listen to us again next time.
The Ohio Roots podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Genealogical Society, the premier gateway for discovering your Ohio family history. Hosted by OGS Executive Director Noel Poyer and edited by Luke Poyer. Theme song is Beautiful Ohio, recorded by Bob Stanley and his orchestra in 1944. To learn more about joining the Ohio Genealogical Society, visit www.ogs.org.